Welcome to the Coffee Buzz. I am Brad. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate that. Are you feeling strong today? I ask because sometimes I'll have coffee, that's maybe an espresso or maybe just a really powerful, bold cup of coffee. And I feel like I can throw a car over a mountain, just pick it up and hoist it. And I thought I'm getting crazy in my old age. But as it turns out, there's reasons that we feel that way. A recent study was published, and it revealed that adults with higher intake of coffee were less frail and had better physical function later in life. They say the average person drinks about 3 cups of coffee a day, 8 ounce, which to me, those are rookie numbers. So don't feel bad about having that 4th, 5th cup. You're probably younger than me, and drink up because it's good for you. It'll keep you strong in your old age. So my house has been taken over by Taylor Swift. At first it was my daughter. She got infected with the Swiftie bug. And then it spread to my wife. And I'm not a Taylor hater by any means. I know a lot of people are. But, I'm not exactly like a, full-on Swiftie either. I appreciate her work ethic, her vision. She knows what she's doing. I may or may not have seen the Eras movie. But it's gotten a bit much here at the house. And I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. My wife and my daughter love singing along with the songs, keeping up with all the Easter eggs that she puts in the albums. Like, that is so cool that they get to do that. I like being an observer kind of on the outside, seeing it. I feel like an archaeologist studying like another culture and learning about all of their ways. But it gets a little much. Pop music it doesn't really do it for me. I mean, I like pop music. Let me just kind of qualify that a bit. But I like it in small doses, For me, I like my music a little bit more abstract, maybe a little bit more raw and rough around the edges. So after hearing hours upon hours of Taylor's music, I needed something else, something to counterbalance that sugary pop, right? And I looked at my, list of potential artists that would fill this niche. And, Tool doesn't really have a new album out. Queens of the Stone Age, I feel like I've been down that road before, as great as they are. Mars Volta was not really, doing anything new. And as luck would have it, Spotify let me know that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard have a new album. And if you're not familiar with this band, they are a psych rock album oriented artist from Australia. And they have a wide range of in their catalog. I had sort of peeked into their world a bit during the 2017, and I was really blown away. I got turned on to them by Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd. He told me about them, and I had to go check them out just based on the name alone. I mean, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. How can you not go and check out a band with that incredible of a name? And they live up to the name. But yeah, when I first heard them, I'm like, these guys are awesome. But I didn't do a deep dive into their discography at the time. And after doing so, I realized they are so much greater than I originally thought they were. And I kind of love that when it happens with a band. Like, I see them from sort of like a peripheral, from the nosebleed section, and I'm like, yeah, those guys are cool. I like what they're doing. And then later you go back and you really uncover it, and you discover a whole new world Just for reference sake here, I want to give you a breakdown of like how this band approaches albums. They have released 26 studio albums since 2010. In 2017, they released 5 albums. And these range from like jazz rock to, semi-acoustic ballads. There's sci-fi prog rock going on. It's a kaleidoscope of sounds. They've even got some, thrash metal and doom metal in there. And they do all these very out of the box type, time signatures, and even with their tunings, they do like microtonal songs, which are sort of notes in between the regular 12 note scales that we use here in the West. And their instrumentation too is incredible. I mean, they started off with 7 members. I think they're down to 6 now, but all of these guys are multi-instrumentalist. So they have this wide array of sounds to choose from. And boy, do they do it, Despite all of these, rapid-paced album releases, for me, the quality never suffers. I mean, I do like some albums more than others, but I never feel like it's just a filler album. And when I was just coming into the Giz, I'm just going to call him King Gizzard from now on, but when I first listened to their first album that I heard anyway, I just kind of thought that the lyrics were maybe random, and it wasn't until I really dug in and started, listening to album after album over the last couple of months that I've realized there are some distinct connections. They have like this, how some bands have concept albums. Well, these guys have a concept discography. I mean, it's meanings that connect throughout multiple albums. And they just have like this shared storyline and universe. And the band has basically, acknowledged this. According to them, it all takes place in its own universe, but the universes are parallel to each other. And the band has also claimed that they've decided how the story ends. On their last album, they know how it's going to come to a close. Hopefully that is not for many years down the road. But these are just a few of the standout albums for me. The one that the fans say is a good starting point would be I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. And this one it came along as I think their 5th album. And basically what it does is kind of meld in all of the sounds that they were starting off with. They were a garage surf rock band from the onset, but I'm in Your Mind Fuzz is one that you could tell they've been playing together live for a long time. And their sound just kind of melds into this nice, you could just tell they read each other's minds musically because their tempos will change. And for 6-7 people to be able to do that, to sound so tight and change change tempo is nothing short of impressive. The one that really hooked me in, though, for me, was Nonagon Infinity. And this album is kind of like one continuous song. It's got like 8 or 9 tracks. And they all just kind of flow together, sort of like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I'm sure you're familiar with that, like where one song sort of passes the baton off to the other. And it's really cool to listen to because if you put it on, repeat, it takes you back to the first track almost, well, not almost, it's just flawless. It just hooks right back into the first track and you start all over, which kind of ties into the infinity part of the title of that album. Murder of the Universe came after that, I believe. And that one is a sort of a doom metal album that is very dark. It talks a lot about monsters and, environmental calamities. And it was also the first time I noticed a character that recurs a lot in their music, a character called Hantiyumi, which is an anagram for humanity. I think that's brilliant. But there's a song called Digital Black where Hantiyumi is the last human that's been born. And it's before he merges with the digital world. It's sort of like the transhumanism that we hear about, where we'll be able to upload our consciousness and be immortal, essentially. So as soon as he does this, though, he starts to have regrets. And in Digital Black, he kind of longs for the time where he was a human doing physical things in the world. And I can kind of relate to this because I grew up, before internet, before home computers were really popular like they are now. And if I fast forward from my simple childhood playing with sticks to now, where everything essentially is on a computer, I rarely even have a in-person conversation anymore. It's all done through text, not even phone calls, which are fine. It's awesome. You're able to communicate with people all over the world, but it does remove something, right? And this Digital Black is just kind of a lament to simpler times where we weren't so connected to our devices and through digital media. It's definitely worth a listen. It is harsh, I will say that, but if you're into that kind of thing, if you like thrash and doom metal, this is right in your wheelhouse. You're gonna like this. And when I thought that Murder of the Universe was a hard album, they turned up the notch even more on the next one, Infest The Rat Nest. It's kind of one of the things I like about this band. They seem to always have a trick up their sleeve. And this album was just kind of a rip your face off thrash album. It's a good soundtrack for the fourth turning is kind of what I call it, because they deal with a lot darker material than even what was on Murder of the Universe, because that was kind of like these fictional altered beasts they had mentioned in a few of the songs. But on Infest the Rat's Nest, it hits a little closer to home because it's all about how humans have completely destroyed the earth. The seas are boiling, sea levels have come up, and Earth is totally inhabitable. And there is a group of ultra rich people that decide to colonize Mars. So that one is definitely something to check out as well. And I love their videos that they have for these things. They've progressively gotten, the production value has gotten better, but some of the earlier videos are some of my favorite. I mean, they almost seem like that Ari Aster film, Midsommar, some of them. So it's super cool. Cloaks, lots of makeup. It really adds a lot to the experience when you take in the videos as well. And then we got what a lot of people consider their masterpiece. It's Polygonal Wonderland. And this one starts off with a track called The Crumbling Castle. And that's worth mentioning because the castle metaphor recurs a lot in their music. And I think what they're getting at there is the empire of humanity is the castle. And it is always in turmoil or crumbling or under siege. You don't want to be in the castle. And in this album, where it opens up where the castle is crumbling, this album feels like a epic film, like something like Stanley Kubrick would have directed. It after the castle crumbles, and it's because the sea levels are rising. They a group of travelers, sages, travel to a a continent that was never seen before called Polygonal Wonderland, where they come in contact with Hantiumi again, and he occurs there. And it's just a wonderfully done, like, just soundscape, and it incorporates woodwind instruments and psych rock, even some of the metal that we talked about before. I mean, their repertoire is so vast. It's really cool to behold, especially if you're a former band nerd. If you like music at all on that level, like technically, this band is something you want to check out. And they're easy to binge on because they have these palate cleansers in between those intense metal albums, where some of them it is just downright whimsical. They've got an album called Fishing for Fishies, which is all about some of those environmental concerns in the harder albums, but it's done with acoustic instruments and very lighthearted way. And then we got Butterfly 3000, which is a synth pop album. And then I can't not mention the Paper Mache Dream Balloon, which is an acoustic psych rock album. Flutes, clarinets, all kinds of wonderful ear candy. And they have 2 releases this year. One is kind of more of a Motorhead sound, but it's all about fossil fuel consumption. And it's wonderful. And then the latest is the Silver Chord, which just is a throwback to the 90s electronica sound of like Chemical Brothers. That one was just released today. And what's worth mentioning is that these albums are not a gimmick. I think the varied styles you hear are a result of them being phenomenal musicians, but also having their own label. So they have total artistic freedom. They can just basically do whatever they want. And they are aware that some of these songs and even albums are kind of over the top. But what's cool is that it's not done in a joking way. Like, they're totally sincere about it. I mean, all you have to do is watch a few live clips, and you can just see how much fun that these guys are having. And it's contagious. I can't wait to see them live. And I have Taylor Swift to thank for all this. So maybe I'm a surrogate Swiftie now. Who knows? Check the show notes if you want to start your journey through the Gizzverse. I've got some great ways that'll sort of lead you down the path and advise you on which album to choose. You can find all of my backlog episodes at thecoffeebuzzpodcast.com. If you want to reach out to me, you can just make a comment if you're watching the video. And if you are listening on the podcast, you can send me an old school email at thecoffeebuzzpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.